Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on March 11, 2025. It's Tuesday, and it was up in the 70s today. It was amazing. Now the sun's going down, the temperature's dropping, but it was actually really nice. I spent most of my day documenting and following up with a state trooper, the Kentucky trooper, the state police, with regard to the vandalism, and he evidently called the judge's office. And evidently, even after I spoke to Judge Executive Gabbard, it appears as if someone authorized cleaning the ditch, and the local judge executive was not aware of it, which is ludicrous. So this is my take on it. I've lived here a long time. Excuse me. In the 6 years that I've lived here, not once, zero, has the county ever cleaned those ditches. I'm the one every year who cleans it, rakes it, cuts it, and burns the leaves. And in fact, a year or so ago, we're burning leaves, and my neighbor calls the fire department that we're burning leaves. So the point is, I have been taking care of that ditch because it's on my property. Even though the township has an easement, or the county has an easement, that easement is part of my surveyed property. They did not contact me to say that they were doing it. And it's only on my property. There's a very small portion that was done on my neighbors. They did it across the street. They cut tree roots. They rerouted the water. It's literally off the charts. So I spent time on the phone trying to find out who did it, who authorized it. The state trooper said something about the magistrate. Our magistrate, there's no way to contact him except if you do it via mail. He doesn't have an email address. He doesn't have a phone number. His name is Danny Todd. I've tried contacting him so many times in the years that I've been here. No way of contacting the guy. And I think roundabout way, I was finally able to leave a message at some point a year ago. Never receive a phone call back. No way to contact these people. And I find out. Now, in most counties, there are zoning laws. And a zoning law is, for those of you that don't own, that rent, there are ordinances or zoning rules. So let's say you're not allowed to keep your music louder than X, Y, and Z decibels past 10 p.m. That's the way it was in New Jersey. So past 10 p.m., if your music is louder than X, Y, and Z, even if you're having a party, you can get fined for that. You can get a code violation. There are certain violations, like in New Jersey, for rerouting water. And that's how I was able to get my perp neighbor to change her water. She deliberately rerouted her water onto my property. And the way she did it was against code violations. So she got a code violation and had to change it so that it wasn't rerouted to my property. So now Jackson County does not have any codes. There's no code enforcement department. Nothing. The only one you've got here is the health department and the road department. You've got the PVA office who does the property taxes and all that. But there is no single entity. There's no zoning rules or regulations here, so anybody does whatever they damn please, and this is how neighbors are allowed to violate other people's property rights here. So no, I'm not going to stop on this. I left a very detailed message. I spoke with a state trooper who did not come out here, because even though I mentioned about the property vandalism today, I also gave him a rundown on the years of vandalism my neighbor trespassing and tearing out my gate, bullet holes in my no trespassing sign, dead animals in my mailbox, felony crimes and stuff. Nothing has ever been done. And I said, would you like to come here and photograph the property vandalism? And at first they were going to, until they called Judge Gabbard, and then everything changed. Then I received a phone call back that, oh, well, we found out that it was authorized. Somebody did authorize it, but I don't have the name of somebody that authorized it. And how come I wasn't contacted and they have done irreparable damage to my property? And how is it that it happens as soon as I listed that piece of land for sale? And the fact that Scarlett drove by with a sneaky grin on her face. So no, I'm not buying any of this. I don't buy it at all. Zero. At first I did, but I don't buy any of it at all. It was deliberate. I went to clean up my property today. There's bitchcraft everywhere. Everywhere. Garbage, trash, cans. They filthied my property. I can't do it all myself. Who can clean 64 acres of their own land being decimated by a group of psychopaths on a daily basis who spend all their days and waking days and nights thinking of ways to damage my property so that it doesn't sell? How does one person have that ability to do that? I certainly don't. But somebody asked me a question. He said, do you happen to have any Scientologists or secret societies really close by? Well, you know, I never thought to look into the Scientologists. But I will say that we've got 3, and I've mentioned this before, 3 Freemason lodges very close by. And as soon as I moved here, a man named Ken drove up. He was absolutely a Freemason. I approached his vehicle, and he had the audacity to say, why did you approach my car? I turned to him flat out and I said, because you're on my property. Self-entitled pieces of trash. Have no respect, have no boundaries, totally entitled. These are psychopaths. They have no respect for anybody else's property. But however, I guarantee if somebody were damaging the Scarlett's property or this Black Ski Mask's property, they'd have their shotgun ready. I guarantee it, they'd be shooting up a storm. So I don't know about the Scientologists. In fact, you gave me something to look up here. But I will say that unfortunately my mother was in a relationship with a man for years and years and years. They lived together, and when my mother passed away, actually she left me everything. She wasn't supposed to pass away first. And he continued to live in the apartment, and he wanted me to keep some things there. And of course, I was ready to clean out the apartment. But he was living there, so I said, you know what, I'm just going to leave it there, and when he passes away, I'll clean it out. Well, his son, who is a Scientologist, and his wife, that runs a Scientology school in North New Jersey, yeah, it's under the guise of something else, but this is how people are duped. They have no idea that their kids are going to a school run by Scientologists. They think it's some special school, but it's run by a Scientologist. And I'll tell you that after my mother passed away, these 2 pieces of shit, his son Ronnie, and I forget her name, didn't even have the decency to come over, contact me, invite me to dinner the whole time I was at my mother's house cleaning it up, as if I didn't even exist. So we'll fast forward a year, and my stepfather I believe they set him up for his health to fail, stuck him in a nursing home. And then they got real busy with my mother's apartment. And behind my back, without telling me, they gave my mother's cat that was supposed to come to me, that my stepfather wanted to keep there to keep him company. They took my mother's cat and gave it away. They said I had no right to the cat. And I actually have her text messages. She is a nasty, manipulative, Masonic, witch, bitch, Scientologist. She and her son. They literally medically kidnapped my stepfather because he and I had a really good relationship. In fact, he called me his daughter, the daughter he never had. And actually, and this is very personal, but I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore. When my mother set up her will, he set up his will, and he made me in charge of his will. But I didn't know that. Nobody told me that until after my mother passed away. That they set it up that I was in charge of his will, and he placed me in charge of everything. So I guess his son and daughter-in-law got pissed off about that. And they literally stole everything in that apartment. Photos of my daughter, photos of my grandma, photos of me, my brother, photos of my mother, all the photos that my stepfather wanted to leave there on the walls and in the books because he felt horrible. He lost my mother. It was unexpected. So of course I wasn't going to take all of her stuff. He wanted me to leave stuff there, and I did. And my mother left me all those things. She worked her butt off her whole life. My mother worked from the time she was like 20 years old. She was still working at 83 years old when they unalived her. She worked for a law firm, and then another law firm, and then a nonprofit. She worked her butt off. She had beautiful clothes, beautiful furniture, a cat that she loved, Lila. They stole her cat, stole everything in the apartment, and then refused to allow me or friends to go in there and get the things that were important to us. Refused. Handed it all over to the super. The super was a man that my mother trusted, gave him Christmas bonuses every year, tipped him. My mother was very generous. Buy things for people. And they stole everything. So yes, Scientologists, they're disgusting. These two people, if they're indicative of what Scientology is about, they are despicable, disgusting, amoral pieces of crap. They're thieves, just like the three Masons. And just like my neighbors, they're predators. They have a predatory mindset. Entitled, predatory mindset. They're doing everything inhumanly possible to prevent my property from selling. But I'm telling you, it's going to sell this year. It's going to sell, and I will be moving. And no, I will not be vacating without having sold the property. Which is what they're trying to do. So now, I had something that I was going to read the other day, and I just didn't have time. I've been really busy here. So now this is with regard to the exposure of cults and secret societies, because they should not be kept secret. There have been several successful exposures of cults and secret societies, and often through a combination of whistleblowers, journalists, law enforcement, believe it or not, and survivor activism. Right? So here are some of the most well-known cases. Now, in 2017 to 2020, that group, and I can't pronounce it, Nixivim, NXIVM, they were exposed. They presented themselves as a self-empowerment organization, but they actually operated as a sex cult under Keith Raniere. Former members like Sarah Edmondson and India Oxberg, they came forward with evidence of branding, coercion, and sexual abuse. Investigative journalist Frank Parlato, he leaked insider information, and the New York Times published a major expose in 2017. Now, what I'm reading to you, this is not an opinion. This is published news. This is public information. The investigative journalist Frank Parlato leaked insider information, and the New York Times published a major expose in 2017. And then HBO created a documentary called The Vow, V-O-W. And the Starz documentary called Seduced. It brought worldwide attention and exposed this particular cult. And the results? Raniere was arrested, and he was sentenced to 120 years in prison in 2020. Now, Scientology, this is like an ongoing exposure. Now, how it started being exposed. You know, the Scientology founder was L. Ron Hubbard. He's long been accused of financial exploitation, abuse, and forced labor. And then ex-members like Leah Remini, she's an actress and she's a former Scientologist. She spoke out, and it led to her series called Scientology in the Aftermath. It's on A&E between 2016 and 2019. Whistleblowers leaked documents and recordings proving harassment tactics against all the critics. Lawsuits, and even my favorite Bureau of Instigation revealed their abuses of tax-exempt status and their secretive SEA org division. And again, don't ask me what it is. I haven't researched it. They have a secret org division. The result? Well, it's still active. The membership is shrinking, and it's still under continuous scrutiny by the press and the legal system. So that's Scientology. Then there is the Children of God. It's now called the Family International. This cult was founded by a David Berg in the 1960s, and he practiced SA exploitation and brainwashing. There was a high-profile ex-member, including actor Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan. They spoke out about their traumatic childhood experiences. And then Ricky Rodriguez, the son of one of the cult's leaders, made a video confession about his abuse before his tragic taking of his own life. It brought intense media scrutiny. Then there were survivors that worked with journalists to expose the cult's global network. The results? The cult officially disbanded, although remnants still exist under new branding. And that's what they do. That's what they do. And that's why I feel that even with the terrorist watch list, even if they expose it, get rid of some of the categories, they'll craft new categories that'll be very secretive, and that's pretty much what they'll do. And then there is the Order of the Solar Temple. This was exposed in 1994. The European Secret Society, led by Joseph de Mambro and Luc Jouret, believed in apocalyptic prophecy and mass unaliving rituals. The police investigation into financial fraud and weapons traffic lights, you got me here, the weapons traffic lights, uncovered the cult's dark side. Before authorities could stop them, over 70 members were found unalived in mass MERDR unalivings across Canada, Switzerland, and France in 1994, and the result of the cult collapsed, and survivors helped expose their hidden networks. Well, then, of course, you've got the Manson family. Everybody knows who they are, right? They were exposed in 1969 to 71. Charles Manson controlled a commune of followers through LSD, psychological control, and violence teachings. And in 1969, they committed multiple unalivings, including the brutal unaliving of actress Sharon Tate. The case was cracked wide open when one cult member, Susan Atkins, confessed to a fellow inmate. And the result? Manson and several members were convicted. They're in prison. And the case became one of the most infamous cult stories in history. Oh, and then we've got the fall of Jeffrey Epstein's secret network in 2019. While it was not a traditional cult, he ran a secret society of elite abusers using blackmail and traffic lights. Investigative journalists, survivors, and leaked court documents exposed his connection to high-profile figures. Then there was a Virginia Giuffre, Giuffre, and other survivors spoke out, leading to his arrest. The result? Well, now they're claiming that Epstein was found unalive in suspicious circumstances, but his accomplices, including Ghislaine Maxwell, they were prosecuted. So some of the common tactics that led to cult exposure: whistleblowers and survivors speak out. Former members risked their lives to share their stories. Journalism and documentaries, media outlets like the New York Times, HBO, and Netflix played a major role. It's sort of like reporting your neighbors to neighborhood wars on A&E, April 11, 2023. If the damn sheriff won't arrest them for felony stalking and property vandalism and shooting a firearm and threatening a worker on your property, then expose them online any way that you can. Then there's legal action and lawsuits. Court cases forced the cult leaders to face justice. Public pressure and activism. Social media campaigns forced investigations, i.e., hashtag expose NXIVM. Well, thank you so much, Chappie T, for that recommendation. I might create a social media campaign to force an investigation into the vandalism on my property. I think that's a great idea, because I think once I posted my photos with a change.org petition, wow, I think I'd get a lot of exposure, don't you? But anyway, so that is answering your question. I have not performed any research on whether or not there's Scientology in this community. However, I do know for a fact that there are 3 free Masonic lodges, and I'm not sure, I haven't been able to confirm or deny, if the former owner of this property were a Mason. I'm going to say that maybe he was. He was a great guy. He was probably lower level. I think that he drove in the parade and all that stuff with his older vehicles. Because when I was cleaning out his mobile home trailer, I did find membership cards of the Eastern Star Witches. These were older ladies, very frumpy looking older ladies. I threw them away, or either I threw them away or burned them. I did not want anything to do with them. But yes, I found these membership cards. And I know that he had meetings here on the property. Whether or not they were religious or not, I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously, I don't speak to my neighbors for them to tell me what he was involved in. But I know that he was busy all the time. He was involved in creating this village Can you imagine how long it took for him to build all these little buildings by hand with no help? And then decorate them all and hold tours? This town was placed on the map because of Travis Sparks. Travis Sparks brought money into this town, into this community. But everybody was jealous and envious of him. That's why he didn't screw anything into the walls around here. He nailed everything in, which was why it was so hard for me to get stuff off the walls, because he nailed everything in so that they would not be stolen. Because he did complain to the sheriff often about trespassing and thefts. So they did it to him. They did it to that old man. They stole from him. They trespassed. They hung out on his property when he was asleep. It wasn't just him. But they're having a free-for-all with me. So I have always been remiss to mention who the owner of this property was before me. But I'm not anymore, because I wanted exposed. I think they thought that I would keep it a secret, because then you'd kind of know where I live. I don't really care anymore. I want this town exposed. I want the people here exposed for who they are. Predators. Criminals. They're involved in an organized crime network to harass one person for profit. And just like all of these people that I just mentioned will be exposed, whistleblowers and stuff like that, you never know when a whistleblower comes forward and talks about one of these local people and gives it away. You never know. All it takes is that those one or two people, just like, all those people that were fired at the NSA that Tulsi Gabbard fired, those 100 perverts. You think that they're not going to be disgruntled and maybe spill the beans on something that was going on there? We can only hope. So, everybody thinks I think Edward Snowden was a hero. Some people say he's a traitor. Well, I'm looking at my statistics here. I want to show you this, okay? I just want to show you. On my evidence part 2 in vandalism, I'm going to show you. This is how I know the criminals are watching my channel. Check this out. So here you go. Scroll across here. So please hit the thumbs up on my videos, folks. You see, 60, 66. It's not going to get out there because you've got all of my local neighbors downvoting it. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what's going on here. But I'm never going to shut up until one of them's arrested. I want to see one of them go to prison. Don't you? So anyway, this is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. It's just a little bit before 8 p.m. and it's still light out, so my birds think that they get to stay up late. Like, I still hear them. They need to be going into the coop. So I'm going to sign off for now. Please hit the thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And I'll look forward to hearing from you guys soon.